All right, guys, we are on lesson 8-10, which is classifying polygons. And a reminder before we start, first of all, remember we skipped 8-9, so you should be on 8-10. And a polygon is a shape, but it's a shape that always has a closed figure. So, for example, if I were to draw a three-sided shape, but it looks like that, that's not technically a polygon because it's not closed. So, circle could be a polygon, a square, a triangle can be a polygon, a square can be a polygon, oops, if that was closed, and so on. So you can have any shape be a polygon as long as it is closed. And yeah, so let's use that information to help us out. Actually, I think I might be wrong about a circle now that I'm remembering. It's been a while since I taught polygons, but what I remember also about a polygon is it has to have straight sides. So you can't have something like that be a polygon because it doesn't have a bunch of sides like that. Okay, anyway, let's get on to what we're really talking about today, which is sorting polygons, and we're going to sort them by our angles, and then we're going to sort them also by their sides. So we're going to do some angle sorts and some side sorts. So we're specifically talking today about triangles and quadrilaterals, which are examples of polygons, okay? So this says, which figures have one or more acute angles? Well, let's first get into what exactly it is that we're looking at today. We have shapes A and B, C and D, E and F, G and H, and they are all closed shapes. They all have 3 or 4 sides, and some of them even have these little rectangles in the corner. So I want to remind you that these little rectangles in the corner are showing you 90-degree angles. So you don't ever have to test for 90-degree angles. However, in order to test for an acute angle, I don't want you to have to get out a protractor. That's a waste of your time. Instead, you can use your 90-degree tester to sort of help you figure it out. I also want to show you the drawing trick. You can sometimes visually see just by drawing these little corners, or these little angles. So A is already done for me because A has clearly 4 90-degree angles. But for B, if I were to draw this little angle here and this little angle here, I can automatically tell that those are acute because my drawing there was so small. But check out B. If I were to draw from here to here, that's a pretty wide angle, and because of that, I think that if I were to test that, that's going to be more than 90 degrees. Because if I were to draw 90 degrees, it goes boom, boom, which is a little smaller than that. So let's look at one like C. If I were to draw all 3 of these angles, to me those all look pretty darn small. For D, those 2 look kind of small, but then look at these 2. That's pretty large, and that's pretty large, okay? For E, I've got one 90-degree angle, and then I have 2 smaller ones. For F, I've got a small one there, a wide one there, small one there, and a wide one there. Okay? For G, I've got 2 90-degree angles, and then I've got a big wide one right here, and a pretty small one right there. And then finally with H, this is probably the hardest one because it's the funkiest, but I see a small angle here, a wide angle, a small angle, and a wide angle. So hopefully some of those drawings will help us answer these questions. So this says, which figures have one or more acute angles? Well, this has all 4 90-degree angles, so A is not correct. But B, those are 2 small ones, so B would be one of our answers. For C, those all look acute to me, so I would say C. For D, even though I have 2 big old angles, these 2 opposite sides right here are definitely acute, so I'll write down D. For E, I have one 90-degree angle, but I definitely have 2 smaller acute angles, so that would be E. And then for F, I have 2 wide ones and 2 small ones, so these small ones are for sure going to be acute. G, I've got 2 90-degree angles, I've got an obtuse angle, and I have an acute angle. Wow, that one has them all. And then for H, again, I've got 2 pretty wide angles and 2 shorter ones. So I would go with H. Now again, if you had a protractor, you could tell me exactly what they are. And like we talked about the other day, if I were to add all 4 sides up, they would equal exactly 360 degrees for a rectangle and 180 degrees for a triangle. And we talked about this, and this is actually kind of the lesson that we skipped. But if you were to take a rectangle and you were to chop it in half, you basically have just created 2 new triangles, and 2 triangles are 180 degrees and 180 degrees, which together adds to be 360. Just a little side note. Okay, I'm going to erase some of that, but not all of it. Okay, so acute angle again. Oh, I guess I should show you this also. I apologize if I'm being a little all over the place. My other option here is that I could have taken this 90-degree tester and put it in all of these corners, and I just want to show you real quick. I'm testing this angle right here, and you can see that my little angle doesn't meet the side of my 90-degree angle, so that's how I know that this one is not obtuse, because it doesn't go past this. Whereas if I put this little guy right here, and remember you have to twist it a little. So I'm, oops, oh gosh, there we go. I'm going to put this guy right on here. And if I follow this red line, do you see how it goes past my 90-degree tester? So that's how I know for sure that that one is acute. But let's get rid. I said get rid. Okay, let's get rid of that guy. All right, back to the show. So on number 2, it says which figures have one or more right angles. Well, this one's the easiest because they've already drawn your right angles for you. So A would be the correct answer there. And then it looks like E also has one. And it looks like G also has one. And I believe those 3 are it. Okay. Number 3 says which figures have one or more obtuse angles. So remember, those are the ones that were wider to draw and seemed wider than a 90-degree angle. You can always use your 90-degree tester, but for today I'll walk you through it. So it says which figures have one or more obtuse angle. Well, this guy right here on the letter B is definitely going to be obtuse. And you'll notice I skipped A because A, we already know, has all 90-degree angles. Okay. For C, I see 3 very small angles. I think those are all acute. So C is not going to work. But D works because there are 2 obtuse angles right there. So D would work. E, that looks like a 90-degree angle and then 2 acute angles. So not for E. For F, I've got 2 acute and 2 obtuse. So F will work. For G, I have one of everything, which is kind of cool. So we'll put G there. And then for H, once again, I have 2 acute and 2 obtuse. So H would also work. I actually am going to ask you to do me a favor. I would love for you to pause and try numbers 4 and 5 on your own. Let me read you the directions first. So it says, which figures have both acute angles and right angles? So you'd go through and try to write down all the letters that have both acute and right. And then number 5 says, which figures have both acute and obtuse? So you're going to see all together. I'll give you a hint. For number 4, there should be 2 answers that you write down. And then for number 5, there would be 5 answers that you would write down. So pause real quick, see if you can come up with the answers to 4 and 5. And the answer to number 4 is E and G. Let's look at those. So on E, it asked for both acute and a right, which is what we have right there. And then for G, it also asked for acute and 2 right. That's the only one that has both of those. And then for number 5, it says which figures have both acute and obtuse. And there were way more of these. So the answers for this guy were B, D, F, G, and H. B, D, F, G, and H. So B has obtuse and acute, acute. D has obtuse, 2 right there, and 2 acute. F has 2 obtuse and 2 acute. G has 1 obtuse and 1 acute. And then H has 2 obtuse and 2 acute. All right. Now this side, we're going to look at our sides. So we're going to do some labeling about our sides, but I also want you to notice that all 8 of these shapes are exactly the same shapes. And we're going to do the same thing as we did before. I'll do 6 through 8 with you, but then I am going to ask you to do 9 and 10 on your own, okay? So this says which figures have perpendicular sides. So here's what you have to remember about a perpendicular line. A perpendicular line is one where you meet at a 90-degree angle. Okay, so you meet at a 90-degree angle. So keep that in mind. You've got to have that little square corner there. Now you could have a perpendicular line that looks like this, but it's also okay to have a perpendicular line that looks just like that. So we are looking for 90-degree angles. So, good news, these have already been drawn for us, and the ones that have drawn square corners are A, E, and G. So those would be your answers for which figures have perpendicular sides. Now the next one says, which figures have exactly one pair of opposite sides? It wants only one pair of opposite sides to be parallel. So we have to be careful. Only one pair. Exactly. So this one has two, boom and boom. This one has none. You'll notice none of your triangles should, because triangles only have three sides. So it's impossible to have parallel sides in a triangle. So C is out as well. So D, that seems to be one set of parallel sides, because this side is definitely not. So D would be one of my answers. E again is a triangle, so it's out. F has two sets of parallel sides. Oh, and look at that. G also has two sets of parallel sides. Oh, sorry. Blah. G has one set of parallel sides, and then H has no parallel sides whatsoever. Okay. Number 8 says, which figures have two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, excuse me. Which figures have two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel? Well, let's talk again. Reminder, I just told you you can't have parallel sides in a triangle because it only has three sides. So that means that B, C, and E are automatically out. I also know that D and G only had one set of parallel sides. So that means my only options for answers are either A, F, or H. And so I just want to check those ones out, see which ones are correct. So A definitely has two pairs of parallel sides. F also has two sets of parallel sides. But H is kind of funky. H is just a quadrilateral because it has four sides, but none of them are the same length and none of them are parallel, so H would not work. So this is the point where I would want you to answer number 9 and 10. Let me give you some advice first. Number 9 says, which figures have both parallel and perpendicular sides? So you're looking for parallel and perpendicular. It doesn't tell you how many of each. And then number 10 says, which figures have no parallel or perpendicular sides? So that means none whatsoever. I kind of gave you a hint on that one. Now my other hint is that on number 9 there are two answers, and my actual answer for number 10 is that there are three answers. Huh. I actually think that the answer to number 10 is actually 4. I think there are 4. So anyway, you try to figure those out. See what you come up with. Oh, no, I lied. It is 3. I figured out what they did there. Okay, sorry. Go try that out. Go see if you can figure out number 9 and 10. There's 2 for 9 and 2 for 10. So pause your video, try those out. So the answers for number 9, which figures have both parallel and perpendicular, that would be A and G. And A has parallel sides here, boom, 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 and boom. And then it also has perpendicular because it's got those 90-degree angles. And then for G, same thing. It's got at least one set of parallel sides, and it also has those two little lines right there. But for number 10, I got a little tricky. I told you that a triangle couldn't have parallel sides, but it can have perpendicular sides. So you had to be careful on number 10. So your answers there were B, and then it was also C, and then finally it was H. So B has no parallel lines and no perpendicular sides because there's no 90-degree angles. Same with C, no parallel lines, no perpendicular lines. But E, even though E doesn't have any parallel sides, it does have perpendicular lines. So that's why E was out. But then H was the funky one that had absolutely nothing. In your SAB, you had a little polygon sorting sheet. I didn't actually take a picture of it. You are welcome to look at that, but it's not part of your assignment today. It's just there for show. But your SAB work, we already did all of those pages, so that's out. I would really love for you to try this homework and remembering, but IXL is also totally fine to do as well. All right, see you tomorrow.